Hi, I'm Uttam. I'm the co-owner of SpiceWaala. It's an Indian street food restaurant in Capitol Hill.
Thank you, Uttam. So let's move on to question one. Why did you leave corporate America to start your own business?
So I think the thing that you have to realize about corporate America is that there's a tremendous amount of reward because of the financial aspects, but you always have to live with the consequences of someone else is going to make a decision for you. And if you don't like that decision, you still have to get in the boat and keep rowing. And that was something that I struggled with a lot because when I used to take an idea from ideation all the way to execution, there was a lot of times that my bosses didn't agree with the vision that I had, and even though I felt like it was the right thing to do, there was always a conflict in that situation. And those kind of situations started happening so frequently that it was really freeing for me to have our own venture where we could make the decisions and live with the consequences 100% ourselves. There's tremendous amount of risk, but there's tremendous amount of potential reward. We haven't seen that reward yet, but hopefully it'll come in the future.
Thank you. Let's go to our next question. How did you have your confidence in starting your own business?
So we approached it in a few different manners that gave us confidence. So we didn't obviously start inherently with confidence, but from the very first time we gave food to our friends and family to just taste, that started giving us the confidence that there might be something here. The next step for us was to actually do a broader taste test with different people that we kind of knew, but that kind of just established a degree of separation between the bias of the test. And so we kind of used that as our research to validate whether the food quality was good and kind of go from there. The next step was to put everything on an Excel spreadsheet and to make sure that the business model was sound and that we knew that we could make money on a venture like this. And then it was just a continuous series of tests and validations of those tests. So the next step after that was going to the farmer's market and setting up a stand. Low cost of entry, but the test results were really powerful for us to get the knowledge to then open a restaurant. And so we've taken everything as a step, and if this next step proves out to be true, then we go to the next step.
Thank you, Uttam. So tell me, what are you most proud of so far?
A couple of different things. I think one, I really enjoy the payroll twice a month, because the amount of money that we're being able to pay our employees, I believe, is a meaningful impact on their lives. So from an employee standpoint, we feel really, really good about that. I think the other thing that we feel really good about, especially during COVID times right now, we're donating a lot of free meals to the community. And so that impact that we can have in the broader community with people who are less fortunate than us is tremendous. And then the third thing, just which is a personal thing for both my wife and I, is that coming from India as immigrants in a city which isn't as well educated about Indian cuisine and Indian culture as it should be, just the opportunity to educate Seattle and to show them a different side of Indian cuisine, a different side of Indian culture, I think is extremely gratifying.
Thank you. So now tell me, what has surprised you the most about having your own business versus your past career?
People management. It's the single most important thing that we've had to deal with in the last year and a half, 2 years. That has just surprised us. It's in my previous job in corporate America, we had people that were recruited for us to work with us that had a certain amount of skill sets, that had a certain amount of responsibility. But in this industry, in the restaurant industry, we're working with hourly workers who have different motivations, who have different needs, who have different family circumstances and come from different backgrounds, and we're just adjusting to that whole process where we are trying to understand how to better manage people so that they can stay with us for longer, because we don't want to go through that attrition as often as the restaurant industry is known for.
So given the circumstances, we are almost beyond 100 days in COVID-19.
Yeah.
So what has been your experience so far with all these challenges that you've never trained for?
It's difficult. I think it's put a tremendous amount of physical and mental strain on myself, my wife, our family unit, as well as just our employees. And I think that's just not something that you can cope with. If pre-COVID or not in a pandemic time, if the business wasn't doing well, you can kind of point out why it's not doing well. It's the food quality, people just don't like the food, we messed up in some way or fashion or something like that. But this was a situation that was completely taken out of our hands and no one could plan for it. And so we just had to adapt to every changing day and every changing circumstance. And from that standpoint, we've just had a tremendous amount of stress having to deal with that change. But I do believe that a lot of restaurants or businesses in general that can adapt to these times and innovate in these times will come out tremendously stronger and be able to do anything in the next decade or more than that.
Thank you. So let's go to a question about yourself. So if you go back 2 years, what would you tell yourself what you know now?
2 years ago, I would have never thought I'd be running a restaurant. I mean, that we were talking about it this morning. That leap that we've taken is just tremendous. But there's a huge difference between the people that think of ideas and don't execute, and the ones who are crazy enough to actually just start doing something. And we're very fortunate that the two of us combined were crazy enough to start something because it's just been extremely gratifying. So 2 years ago, if I had the foresight, I guess I would have told myself to just take that leap of faith a little bit earlier and to just go for it. Knowing what we know now, I think it's proved out to be a really tremendous experience.
So if you were to talk to a student today who's about to graduate, would you tell the student to be an entrepreneur? Would you like to tell the student to take a fixed path in life with a fixed job?
Well, I mean, I think the beauty of COVID is that you just don't know anything, right? Like there's just certain circumstances that you will never be able to predict. And I think that's really eye-opening for a lot of people who are going through life changes right now. I mean, especially students. You don't know if the company that you're interviewing with today is going to be there in a year from now, in 10 years from now. And so it's worth taking that risk because they're giving you financial guarantee for the next couple of years, etc. But looking back, will you be happy with that decision? That's what you need to really consider. I mean, for us, we took a very secure path till postgraduate and a couple of years after that with work experience. But honestly, I wish we would have taken a risk earlier so we could have had this acceleration in our careers much earlier in our lives. And I think the kind of experience that you get from owning your own business, whether it's people management, it's financial accounting, or it's operations, or just strategy, marketing, like you just get such a different variety of experiences and you have to do everything yourself. So you're getting the experience at a very grassroots level, which you just cannot get holistically at any company that you join. They just won't give you that much responsibility. So if you crave responsibility, if you crave the risk, I mean, starting your own business or starting your own venture, with smart assumptions, I think is the right way to go.
Now, one last question. So, given our background from a highly cultural environment, where entrepreneurship is not something common, and it's always looked down upon.
Yeah.
How would you address that kind of population, and what would you tell them?
I mean, there's a reason why we're all immigrants here in this country, right? We have to shed some of the biases that we have from the cultures that we come from. And you have to understand that there's other avenues for us, right? Like if I told someone back home in India that I was a cook, they would literally look at me very weirdly and say, yeah, but I can pay someone to do that. Why would you do that yourself? And so you have to understand that there's other potentials for you outside that your culture may not be okay with, but that you need to take a risk on. If you're passionate about something and you believe that there could be something business related around that passion, I think there's a potential for you to go and seize that opportunity. And if your family's okay with it or your loved ones are okay with it and they believe in you, you'll see that support coming in flood waves. Just wait for it. Once they start seeing success, they will come out just supporting you in tremendous ways. When we started, I mean, our parents weren't really happy with the fact that I was quitting a job or that we were taking such a big risk. But as we've gone down this process, like they've seen the potential that we have and they've seen the potential of the ideas and they've started to believe more and more in it to the point where they want to come and spend more and more time with us. And so you can change other people's minds from your culture, from your backgrounds, from your family units, and they can become more open to different paths that you weren't exposed to when you were growing up.
Thank you, Uttam. It was a pleasure talking to you today.
Actually, can I ask a quick question to that? So you absolutely amazing inspiration story. I was just wondering actually, So we talked about, we talked about this soft power, like, the family kind of together to support you, but then again, a lot of kids getting out of school, getting out of college, wanting to start something on their own. I think one of the biggest big challenges they face is the financial.
Yeah.
And I was just wondering if you had to go through that kind of experience,
Yeah.
or how do people get help in that regard?
So I won't make it seem like we went through the toughest process, because we didn't. Like, we're fortunate that we were both, my wife and I were both working good jobs in corporate America before we started doing this. So we had built up a little bit of savings that we were able to invest. But what we did was we reached out to our friends and family, because we only had a tiny amount of money to invest into this business. And the majority bulk of what we invested into this business to get the first restaurant up and running was from our family and friends. That process was very humbling, because you literally had to put your passion on a plate and say, judge me as my friend, as my family, judge me and tell me whether you think this is a good idea or not. And a lot of people just said, hey, I just don't have the money, or I don't have the financial prowess, or I just don't believe in it. But there was a lot of people that came out to support us that we wouldn't have expected. And I think that's really interesting, right? So you have to understand your network, whether it's your network back home, whether it's your network over here, your friends, your colleagues, your classmates, your professors, whoever it is. Understand your network, and then understand how you can play to that. We're also lucky that in America there are a lot of opportunities to take on financing. So if you believe that your business can take on the financing, if your business model says it can pay back the loans and those kind of things, it's a great option. It wasn't an option for us at that time, but it's a great option, especially in a country right now where we're entering into a recession where financing is really cheap.
Great, amazing.
Thank you.
Awesome, thank you.